The Bell UH-1 Iroquois is a military helicopter powered by a single turboshaft engine, with a two-bladed main rotor and tail rotor. The helicopter was developed by Bell Helicopter to meet the United States Army's requirement for a medical evacuation and utility helicopter in 1952, and first flew on October 20, 1956. Ordered into production in March 1960, the UH-1 was the first turbine-powered helicopter to enter production for the United States military, and more than 16,000 have been produced worldwide. The first combat operation of the UH-1 was in the service of the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War. The original designation of HE-1 led to the helicopter's nickname of Huey. In September 1962, the designation was changed to UH-1, but Huey remained in common use. Approximately 7,000 UH-1 aircraft saw service in Vietnam. Development. In 1952, the Army identified a requirement for a new helicopter to serve as medical evacuation, instrument trainer and general utility aircraft. The Army determined that current helicopters were too large, underpowered, or were too complex to maintain easily. In November 1953, revised military requirements were submitted to the Department of the Army. 20 companies submitted designs in their bid for the contract, including Bell Helicopter with the Model 204 and Kaman Aircraft with a turbine-powered version of the H-43. On February 23, 1955, the Army announced its decision, selecting Bell to build 3 copies of the Model 204 for evaluation, designated as the XH-40. Model 204. Powered by a prototype-like Cumming YT-53L1 engine producing 700 shp, the XH-40 first flew on October 20, 1956, at Fort Worth, Texas, with Bell's chief test pilot, Floyd Carlson, at the controls. 2 more prototypes were built in 1957, and the Army has previously ordered 6 YH-40 service test aircraft, even before the first prototype had flown. In March 1960, the Army awarded Bell a production contract for 100 aircraft, which was designated as the HE-1A and officially named Iroquois, after the Native American nations. The helicopter quickly developed a nickname derived from its designation of HE-1, which came to be pronounced as Huey. The reference became so popular that Bell began casting the name on the helicopter's anti-torque pedals. The official U.S. Army name was almost never used in practice. After September 1962, the designation for all models was changed to UH-1 under a unified Department of Defense designation system, but the nickname remained. While glowing in praise for the helicopter's advances over piston-engined helicopters, the Army reports from the service tests of the YH-40 found it to be underpowered, with the production T-53L1A power plant producing a maximum continuous 770 shaft horsepower. The Army indicated the need for improved, follow-on models even as the first UH-1s were being delivered. In response, Bell proposed the UH-1B, equipped with a like Cumming T-53L5 engine producing 960 shp and a longer cabin that could accommodate 7 passengers, or 4 stretchers and a medical attendant. Army testing of the UH-1B started in November 1960, with the first production aircraft delivered in March 1961. Bell commenced development of the UH-1C in 1960, to correct aerodynamic deficiencies of the armed UH-1B. Bell fitted the UH-1C with a 1,100 shp T-53L11 engine to provide the power needed to lift all weapons systems in use or under development. The Army would eventually refit all UH-1B aircraft with the same engine. A new rotor system was developed for the UH-1C to allow higher airspeeds and reduce the incidence of retreating blade stall during diving engagements. The improved rotor resulted in better maneuverability and a slight speed increase. The increased power and a larger diameter rotor required Bell's engineers to design a new tail boom for the UH-1C. The longer tail boom incorporated a wider chord vertical fin on the tail rotor pylon and larger synchronized elevators. Bell also introduced a dual hydraulic control system for redundancy, and an improved inlet filter system for the dusty conditions found in Southeast Asia. The UH-1C fuel capacity was increased to 242 US gallons and gross weight was raised to 9,500 lb, giving a nominal useful load of 4,673 lb. UH-1C production started in June 1966, with a total of 766 aircraft produced, including 5 for the Royal Australian Navy and 5 for Norway. Model 205. While earlier short-body Hueys were a success, the Army wanted a version that could carry more troops. Bell's solution was to stretch the HU-1B fuselage by 41 in and use the extra space to fit 4 seats next to the transmission, facing out. Seating capacity increased to 15, including crew. The enlarged cabin could also accommodate 6 stretchers and a medic, 2 more than the earlier models. In place of the earlier models' sliding side doors with a single window, larger doors were fitted which had 2 windows, plus a small hinged panel with an optional window, providing access to the cabin. The doors and hinged panels were quickly removable, allowing the Huey to be flown in a doors-off configuration. The Model 205 prototype flew on August 16, 1961. 7 pre-production prototype aircraft had been delivered for testing at Edwards AFB starting in March 1961. The 205 was initially equipped with a 44-foot main rotor and a Lycoming T-53L9 engine with 1,100 shp. The rotor was lengthened to 48 feet with a chord of 21 in. The tail boom was also lengthened, in order to accommodate the longer rotor blades. Altogether, the modifications resulted in a gross weight capacity of 9,500 lb. The Army ordered production of the 205 in 1963, produced with a T-53L11 engine for its multi-fuel capability. The prototypes were designated as UH-1D and the production aircraft was designated as the UH-1D. In 1966, Bell installed the 1,400 shp Lycoming T-53L13 engine to provide more power for the aircraft. The pitot tube was relocated from the nose to the roof of the cockpit, to prevent damage during landing. Production models in this configuration were designated as the UH-1 Hour. Marine Corps. In 1962, the United States Marine Corps held a competition to choose an assault support helicopter to replace the Cessna 01 fixed-wing aircraft and the Cammin OH-43D helicopter. The winner was the UH-1B, which was already in service with the Army. The helicopter was designated the UH-1E and modified to meet Marine requirements. The major changes included the use of all-aluminum construction for corrosion resistance, radios compatible with Marine Corps ground frequencies, a rotor brake for shipboard use to stop the rotor quickly on shutdown and a roof-mounted rescue hoist. The UH-1E was first flown on October 7, 1963, and deliveries commenced February 21, 1964, with 192 aircraft completed. Due to production line realities at Bell, the UH-1E was produced in 2 different versions, both with the same UH-1E designation. The first 34 built were essentially UH-1B airframes with the Lycoming T-53L11 engine producing 1,100 shp. When Bell switched production to the UH-1C, the UH-1E production benefited from the same changes. The Marine Corps later upgraded UH-1E engines to the Lycoming T-53L13, which produced 1,400 shp, after the Army introduced the UH-1M and upgraded their UH-1C helicopters to the same engine. Air Force. The United States Air Force's competition for a helicopter to be used for support on missile bases included a specific requirement to mandate the use of the General Electric T-58 turboshaft as a power plant. The Air Force had a large inventory of these engines on hand for its fleet of HH-3 Jolly Green Giant rescue helicopters, and using the same engine for both helicopters would save costs. In response, Bell proposed an upgraded version of the 204B with the T-58 engine. Because the T-58 output shaft is at the rear, and was thus mounted in front of the transmission on the HH-3, it had to have a separate offset gearbox at the rear, and shafting to couple to the UH-1 transmission. Twin-engine variants. The single-engine UH-1 variants were followed by the twin-engine UH-1N Twin Huey and later the UH-1Y Venom. Bell began development of the UH-1N for Canada in 1968. It changed to the more powerful Pratt & Whitney Canada .6T twin-engine set. The U.S. also ordered the helicopter, with the U.S. Air Force receiving it in 1970. Canada's military, the U.S. Marine Corps, and the U.S. Navy first received the model in 1971. In 1996, the USMC began the H-1 upgrade program by awarding a contract to Bell Helicopter for developing the improved UH-1Y and AH-1ZS variants. The UH-1Y includes a lengthened cabin, 4-blade rotor and 2 more powerful GET-700 engines. The UH-1Y entered service with the USMC in 2008. Design: the UH-1 has a metal fuselage of semi-monocoque construction with tubular landing skids and 2 rotor blades on the main rotor. Early UH-1 models featured a single Lycoming T53 turboshaft engine in versions with power ratings from 700 shp to 1400 shp. Later UH-1 and related models would feature twin engines and 4-blade rotors. All aircraft in the UH-1 family have similar construction. The UH-1 Hour is the most produced version, and is representative of all types. The main structure consists of 2 longitudinal main beams that run under the passenger cabin to the nose and back to the tail boom attachment point. The main beams are separated by transverse bulkheads and provide the supporting structure for the cabin, landing gear, underfloor fuel tanks, transmission, engine and tail boom. The main beams are joined at the lift beam, a short aluminum girder structure that is attached to the transmission via a lift link on the top and the cargo hook on the bottom, and is located at the aircraft's center of gravity. The lift beams were changed to steel later in the UH-1 Hour's life, due to cracking on high-time airframes. The semi-monocoque tail boom attaches to the fuselage with 4 bolts. The UH-1 Hour's dynamic components include the engine, transmission, rotor mast, main rotor blades, tail rotor driveshaft, and the 42° and 90° gearboxes. The transmission is of a planetary type and reduces the engine's output to 324 rpm at the main rotor. The 2-bladed, semi-rigid rotor design, with pre-coned and underslung blades, is a development of early Bell model designs, such as the Bell 47, with which it shares common design features, including a dampened stabilizer bar. The 2-bladed system reduces storage space required for the aircraft, but at a cost of higher vibration levels. The 2-bladed design is also responsible for the characteristic Huey thump when the aircraft is in flight, which is particularly evident during descent and in turning flight. The tail rotor is driven from the main transmission, via the 2 directional gearboxes, which provide a tail rotor speed approximately 6 times that of the main rotor to increase tail rotor effectiveness. The UH-1 Hour also features a synchronized elevator on the tail boom, which is linked to the cyclic control and allows a wider center of gravity range. The standard fuel system consists of 5 interconnected fuel tanks, 3 of which are mounted behind the transmission and 2 of which are under the cabin floor. The landing gear consists of 2 arched cross tubes joining the skid tubes. The skids have replaceable sacrificial skid shoes to prevent wear of the skid tubes themselves. Skis and inflatable floats may be fitted. Internal seating is made up of 2 pilot seats and additional seating for up to 13 passengers or crew in the cabin. The maximum seating arrangement consists of a 4-man bench seat facing rearwards behind the pilot seats, facing a 5-man bench seat in front of the transmission structure, with 2-man bench seats facing outwards from the transmission structure on either side of the aircraft. All passenger seats are constructed of aluminum tube frames with canvas material seats, and are quickly removable and reconfigurable. The cabin may also be configured with up to 6 stretchers, an internal rescue hoist, auxiliary fuel tanks, spotlights, or many other mission kits. Access to the cabin is via 2 aft sliding doors and 2 small, forward-hinged panels. The doors and hinged panels may be removed for flight, or the doors may be pinned open. Pilot access is via individual hinged doors. While the 5 main fuel tanks are self-sealing, the UH-1 Hour was not equipped with factory armor, although armored pilot seats were available. The UH-1's dual controls are conventional for a helicopter and consist of a single hydraulic system boosting the cyclic stick, collective lever and anti-torque pedals. The collective levers have integral throttles, although these are not used to control rotor RPM, which is automatically governed, but are used for starting and shutting down the engine. The cyclic and collective control the main rotor pitch through torque tube linkages to the swash plate, while the anti-torque pedals change the pitch of the tail rotor via a tensioned cable arrangement. Some UH-1Hs have been modified to replace the tail rotor control cables with torque tubes similar to the UH-1N twin Huey. Operational history, U.S. Army. The HU-1A first entered service with the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the 82nd Airborne Division, and the 57th Medical Detachment. Although intended for evaluation only, the Army quickly pressed the new helicopter into operational service, and Hueys with the 57th Medical Detachment arrived in Vietnam in March 1962. The UH-1 has long been a symbol of U.S. involvement in Southeast Asia in general and Vietnam in particular, and as a result of that conflict, has become one of the world's most recognized helicopters. In Vietnam, primary missions included general support, air assault, cargo transport, aeromedical evacuation, search and rescue, electronic warfare, and later, ground attack. During the conflict, the craft was upgraded, notably to a larger version based on the Model 205. This version was initially designated the UH-1D and flew operationally from 1963. During service in the Vietnam War, the UH-1 was used for various purposes and various terms for each task abounded. UH-1s tasked with the ground attack or armed escort role were outfitted with rocket launchers, grenade launchers, and machine guns. As early as 1962, UH-1s were modified locally by the companies themselves, who fabricated their own mounting systems. These gunship UH-1s were commonly referred to as frogs, or hogs if they carried rockets, and cobras, or simply guns if they had guns. UH-1s tasked and configured for troop transport were often called slicks due to an absence of weapons pods. Slicks did have door gunners, but were generally employed in the troop transport and medevac roles. UH-1s also flew hunter-killer teams with observation helicopters, namely the Bell UH-1 Iroquois and the Hughes UH-6 Cows. Towards the end of the conflict, the UH-1 was tested with tow missiles, and two UH-1B helicopters equipped with the XM-26 armament subsystem were deployed to help counter the 1972 Easter invasion. USAF Lieutenant James P. Fleming piloted a UH-1F on a November 26, 1968 mission that earned him the Medal of Honor. In Cavalry Troops, there were 3 platoons. The Blue Platoon had aero rifle soldiers and their organic UH-1 troop transports for feet-on-the-ground reconnaissance and to support other platoons. The reconnaissance or observation helicopter platoon was known as the Whites. The attack helicopter platoon was called the Reds. The Red Platoon had Huey or Huey Cobra attack helicopters. Mixed platoon teams were often used. Purple teams had 1 or 2 blue slicks dropping off scout troops, while 1 or 2 red attack helicopters provided protection. Another highly effective team was the Pink Recon Attack Team, which had a single scout helicopter and a single attack helicopter to defend the scout and to attack discovered enemy troops. During the course of the war, the UH-1 went through several upgrades. The UH-1A, B, and C models and the UH-1D and H models each had improved performance and load-carrying capabilities. The UH-1B and C performed the gunship, and some of the transport, duties in the early years of the Vietnam War. UH-1 byte-per-carrot gunships were replaced by the new AH-1 Cobra attack helicopter from 1967 to late 1968. The increasing intensity and sophistication of NVA anti-aircraft defenses made continued use of UH-1 gunships impractical, and after Vietnam the Cobra was adopted as the Army's main attack helicopter. Devotees of the UH-1 in the gunship role cite its ability to act as an impromptu dust-off if the need arose, as well as the superior observational capabilities of the larger Huey cockpit, which allowed return fire from door gunners to the rear and sides of the aircraft. During the war 7,013 UH-1s served in Vietnam, and of these 3,305 were destroyed. In total 1,074 Huey pilots were killed, along with 1,103 other crew members. The U.S. Army phased out the UH-1 with the introduction of the UH-60 Black Hawk, although the Army UH-1 residual fleet had around 700 UH-1s that were to be retained until 2015, primarily in support of Army aviation training at Fort Rucker and in selected Army National Guard units. Army support for the craft was intended to end in 2004. The UH-1 Huey was retired from active Army service in 2005. In 2009, Army National Guard retirements of the UH-1 accelerated with the introduction of the UH-72 Lakota. U.S. Air Force. In October 1965, the USAF 20th Helicopter Squadron was formed at Tan Son Nhut Air Base in South Vietnam, equipped initially with CH-3C helicopters. By June 1967 the UH-1F and UH-1P were also added to the unit's inventory, and by the end of the year the entire unit had shifted from Tan Son Nhut to Nac Han Phanom Royal Thai Air Force Base, with the CH-3s transferring to the 21st Helicopter Squadron. On August 1, 1968, the unit was redesignated the 20th Special Operations Squadron. The 20th SOS's UH-1s were known as the Green Hornets, stemming from their color. A primarily green two-tone camouflage was carried, and radio call sign Hornet. The main role of these helicopters were to insert and extract reconnaissance teams, provide cover for such operations, conduct psychological warfare, and other support roles for covert operations, especially in Laos and Cambodia during the so-called Secret War. U.S. Navy. The U.S. Navy began acquiring UH-1B helicopters from the Army, and these aircraft were modified into gunships with special gun mounts and radar altimeters and were known as Seawolves, in service with Navy Helicopter Attack 3. UH-1C helicopters were also acquired in the 1970s. The Seawolves worked as a team with Navy River Patrol operations. 4 years after the disestablishment of HAL-3, the Navy determined that it still had a need for gunships, establishing 2 new Naval Reserve Helicopter Attack Squadrons as part of the newly formed Commander, Helicopter Wing Reserve in 1976. Helicopter Attack Squadron 55, nicknamed the Blue Hawks, was established at Naval Air Station Point Mugu, California on the 11th June 1977, and its sister squadron, Helicopter Attack Squadron 44, known as the Red Wolves, was formed at Naval Air Station Norfolk, Virginia on July 1, 1976. Australia. The Royal Australian Air Force employed the UH-1 OWL until 1989. Iroquois helicopters of No. 9 Squadron or AAF were deployed to South Vietnam in mid-1966 in support of the 1st Australian Task Force. In this role they were armed with single M60 DO organs. In 1969 4 of No. 9 Squadron's helicopters were converted to gunships, armed with 2 fixed forward-firing M134 7.62 minigun and a 7-round rocket pod on each side. Aircrew were armed with twin M60 flexible mounts in each door. UH-1 helicopters were used in many roles including troop transport, medevac and bushranger gunships for armed support. No. 35 Squadron and No. 5 Squadron also operated the Iroquois in various roles through the 1970s and 1980s. Between 1982 and 1986, the squadron contributed aircraft and aircrew to the Australian Helicopter Detachment, which formed part of the Multinational Force and Observers Peacekeeping Force in the Sinai Peninsula, Egypt. In 1988 the RAAF began to re-equip with S-70A Black Hawks. In 1989 and 1990 the RAAF's UH-1 Iroquois was subsequently transferred to the 171st Aviation Squadron in Darwin, Northern Territory, and the 5th Aviation Regiment based in Townsville, Queensland, following the decision that all battlefield helicopters would be operated by the Australian Army. On September 21, 2007, the Australian Army retired the last of their Bell UH-1s. The last flight occurred in Brisbane on that day, with the aircraft replaced by MRH-90 medium helicopters and Tiger armed reconnaissance helicopters. The Royal Australian Navy's 723 Squadron also operated 7 UH-1B from 1964 to 1989, with 3 of these aircraft lost in accidents during that time. 723 Squadron deployed Iroquois aircraft and personnel as part of the experimental military unit during the Vietnam War. New Zealand. The Royal New Zealand Air Force currently has an active fleet of 13 Iroquois serving with No. 3 Squadron or NZAF. The first delivery was 5 UH-1D in 1966, followed in 1970 by 9 UH-1 hour and 1 more UH-1 hour in 1976. All of the UH-1D aircraft were upgraded to 1 hour specification during the 1970s. 2 ex-US Army UH-1 hour attrition airframes were purchased in 1996, one of which is currently in service. 3 aircraft have been lost in accidents. The NZAF is currently in the process of retiring the Iroquois. The Industria's NH-90 has been chosen as the replacement aircraft. This process was expected to be completed by the end of 2013, but has since been pushed out to 2016. Individual aircraft are being retired as they reach their next major group servicing intervals. Germany. The 352 licensed German UH-1D variants built by Dornier between 1967 and 1981 saw service with the military by the German Army and German Air Force as light utility as well as search and rescue helicopters. In addition, the German Federal Police made extensive use of the UH-1 before replacing them with newer Eurocopter EC-135 helicopters. El Salvador, UH-1s were operated by El Salvador Air Force, being at its time the biggest and most experienced combat helicopter force in Central and South America, fighting during 10 years and being trained by U.S. Army in tactics developed during the Vietnam War. UH-1M and UH-1 hour helicopters used by El Salvador were modified to carry bombs instead of rocket pods. Lebanon. During the Battle of Nahr el-Bared camp in North Lebanon, the Lebanese army, lacking fixed-wing aircraft, modified the UH-1 hour, allowing it to carry 500 LB Mark 82 bombs to strike militant positions. Each Huey was equipped on each side with special mounts engineered by the Lebanese army to carry the high-explosive bombs. Rhodesia. Very late in the Rhodesian Bush War, the Rhodesian Air Force was able to obtain and use 11 former Israeli Augusta Bell 205s, known in service as Cheetahs. After much work, these then formed No. 8 SQN Rhodesian Air Force and took part as troop transports in the counterinsurgency fight. One was lost in combat in September 1979, when hit in Mozambique by a RPG. At least another 3 were lost. The survivors were put up for sale in 1990. Argentina. 9 Argentine Army Aviation UH-1HS and 2 Argentine Air Force Bell 212 were included with the aircraft deployed during the Falklands War. They performed general transport and SAR missions and were based at Port Stanley. 2 of the Hueys were destroyed and, after the hostilities had ended, the balance were captured by the British. Israel withdrew its UH-1s from service in 2002, after 33 years of service. They were replaced by Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, beginning with an initial batch of 10 delivered in 1994. While some were passed on to pro-Israeli militias in Lebanon, 11 other UH-1DS were reportedly sold to a Singapore-based logging company but were, instead, delivered in October 1978 to the Rhodesian Air Force to skirt the UN-endorsed embargo imposed during the Rhodesian Bush War. Philippines. The Philippine Air Force employs the UH-1 for transport and search and rescue. The PAF also used the UH-1 helicopters during the 2000 campaign against terrorism of the Philippine government. Operation Enduring Freedom. UH-1HS have been used by the United States Drug Enforcement Agency in counter-narcotics raids in the ongoing conflict in Afghanistan. Operated by contractors, these Hueys provide transportation, surveillance, and air support for DEA FAST teams. 4 UH-1HS and 2 Mi-17s were used in a raid in July 2009 which led to the arrest of an Afghan border police commander. Variant overview. U.S. Military variants. XH-40, the initial Bell 204 prototype. 3 prototypes were built, equipped with a Lycoming XT-53L1 engine of 700 shp. YH-40, 6 aircraft for evaluation, as XH-40 with 12-inch cabin stretch and other modifications. Bell Model 533, 1 YH-40BF rebuilt as a flight test bed with turbofan engines and wings. HU-1A, initial Bell 204 production model, redesignated as the UH-1A in 1962. 182 built. TH-1A, UH-1A with dual controls and blind flying instruments, 14 conversions. XH-1A, a single UH-1A was redesignated for grenade launcher testing in 1960. HU-1B, upgraded HU-1A, various external and rotor improvements. Redesignated UH-1B in 1962. 1014 built plus 4 prototypes designated YUH-1B New 1B, a single test aircraft, serial number 64 to 18261. UH-1C, the UH-1B gunship lacked the power necessary to carry weapons and ammunition and keep up with transport Hueys, and so Bell designed yet another Huey variant, the UH-1C, intended strictly for the gunship role. It is an UH-1B with improved engine, modified blades and rotor head for better performance in the gunship role. 767 built. YUH-1D, 7 pre-production prototypes of the UH-1D. UH-1D, initial Bell 205 production model. Designed as a troop carrier to replace the CH-34 then in U.S. Army service. 2008 built, many later converted to UH-1 hour standard. HH-1D, Army crash rescue variant of UH-1D. UH-1E, UH-1 byte per carat for USMC with different avionics and equipment. 192 built. NUH-1E, UH-1E configured for testing. TH-1E, UH-1C configured for Marine Corps training. 20 were built in 1965. UH-1F, UH-1 byte per carat for USAF with General Electric T-58GE3 engine of 1,325 shp. 120 built. TH-1F, instrument and rescue trainer based on the UH-1F for the USAF. 26 built. UH-1G, unofficial name applied locally to at least one armed UH-1 hour by the Khmer National Air Force in Cambodia. UH-1 hour, improved UH-1D with the Lycoming T-53L13 engine of 1,400 shp. 5435 built. CUH-1 hour, Canadian Forces designation for the UH-1 hour utility transport helicopter. Redesignated CH-118. A total of 10 built. EH-1 hour, 22 aircraft converted by installation of ANARQ-33 radio intercept and jamming equipment for Project Quick Fix. HH-1 hour, SAR variant for the USAF with rescue hoist. A total of 30 built. JUH-1, 5 UH-1HS converted to SOTAS battlefield surveillance configuration with belly-mounted airborne radar. TH-1 hour, recently modified UH-1HS for use as basic helicopter flight trainers by the USAF. UH-1J, an improved Japanese version of the UH-1 hour built under license in Japan by Fuji, was locally given the designation UH-1J. Among improvements were an Allison T-53L703 turboshaft engine providing 1,343 kW, a vibration reduction system, infrared countermeasures, and a night vision goggle-compatible cockpit. HH-1K, purpose-built SAR variant of the Model 204 for the U.S. Navy with USN avionics and equipment. 27 built. TH-1L, helicopter flight trainer based on the HH-1K for the USN. A total of 45 were built. UH-1L, utility variant of the TH-1L. 8 were built. UH-1M, gunship-specific UH-1C upgrade with Lycoming T-53L13 engine of 1,400 shp. UH-1N, initial Bell 212 production model, the Bell twin-pack twin-engined Huey powered by Pratt & Whitney Canada T400 CP400. UH-1P, UH-1F variant for USAF for special operations use and attack operations used solely by the USAF 20th Special Operations Squadron, the Green Hornets. EH-1U, no more than 2 UH-1 aircraft modified for multiple target electronic warfare system. UH-1V, aeromedical evacuation, rescue version for the U.S. Army. EH-1X, 10 electronic warfare UH-1HS converted under quick fix AIA. UH-1Y, upgraded variant developed from existing upgraded late model UH-1 nanosecond, with additional emphasis on commonality with the AH-1Z. Note, in U.S. service the G, J, Q, R, S, T, W and Z model designations are used by the AH-1. The UH-1 and AH-1 are considered members of the same H-1 series. The military does not use I or O for aircraft designations to avoid confusion with 1 and 0 respectively. Other military variants, Bell 204, Bell Helicopters Company designation, covering aircraft from the XH-40, YH-40 prototypes to the UH-1A, UH-1B, UH-1C, UH-1E, UH-1F, HH-1K, UH-1L, UH-1P and UH-1M production aircraft. Augusta Bell AB-204, military utility transport helicopter. Built under license in Italy by Augusta. Augusta Bell AB-204AS, anti-submarine warfare, anti-shipping version of the AB-204 helicopter. Fuji Bell 204B2, military utility transport helicopter. Built under license in Japan by Fuji Heavy Industries. Used by the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force under the name Hyodori. Bell 205, Bell Helicopters Company designation of the UH-1D and UH-1 helicopters. Bell 205A1, military utility transport helicopter version, initial version based on the UH-1 Bell 205A1A, as 205A1, but with armament hardpoints and military avionics. Produced specifically for Israeli contract. Augusta Bell 205, military utility transport helicopter. Built under license in Italy by Augusta. AIDC UH-1 military utility transport helicopter. Built under license in Taiwan by Aerospace Industrial Development Corporation. Dornier UH-1D, military utility transport helicopter. Built under license in Germany by Dornier Flugzeugwerk Fuji Bell 205A1, military utility transport helicopter. Built under license in Japan by Fuji. Used by the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force under the designation HU-1 Bell 211 Huey tug with uprated dynamic system and larger wide chord blades. The Bell 211 was offered for use as the U.S. Army's prime artillery mover, but not taken up. Bell Huey 2, a modified and re-engined UH-1 improvements were an Allison T-53L703 turboshaft engine providing 1,343 kW, a vibration reduction system, infrared countermeasures, and a night vision goggle-compatible cockpit significantly upgrading its performance, and its cost-effectiveness. Currently offered by Bell in cooperation with the Philippine Air Force to all current military users of the type. UH-1 per ton 700 Ultra Huey, upgraded commercial version, fitted with a 1,400 kW General Electric T700 GE701C turboshaft engine. Operators. Aircraft on display. The UH-1 experienced a production number in the thousands, and many are in service in nations around the world. A large number of decommissioned and retired aircraft exist as gate guardians at various military bases, in aviation museums, and other static display sites. Examples include, Australia, U.S. Army UH-1V Dustoff donated to the Dandenong RSL, in Dandenong, Victoria by the U.S. government in September 2003. RAAF UH-1 BA2-1019 at the Australian War Memorial, Canada, Canadian CH-118 118101 at the National Air Force Museum of Canada, CFB Trenton, Ontario, Germany, German SAR UH-1D at the Dornier Museum Friedrichshafen, Friedrichshafen, German Army UH-1D at the Deutsches Museum Flugwaffenschließschirm, Oberschließschirm. U.S. Army UH-1D at the Joint Multinational Readiness Center, in Hohenfels, Germany, dedicated on June 23, 2014 to the Falcon Team, New Zealand, UH-1 Hour at the Royal New Zealand Air Force Museum, Christchurch. Norway, UH-1B on static display at the Norwegian Aviation Museum in Bodø. United Kingdom, UH-1 Hour at the American Air Force hangar of the Imperial War Museum, Dewford, UH-1 Hour at the Helicopter Museum, Weston-super-Mare. UH-1 Hour 72 to 21,509 is the only flying Huey in the UK, which is based in Wesham, Lancashire and owned by MSS Holdings UK Limited, United States. The Bell UH-1 Hour Smoky 3 that resides in the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center served 4 tours and over 2,500 hours in Vietnam. UH-1A located at the 82nd Airborne Division War Memorial Museum at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. UH-1A located at the Intrepid Sea Air Space Museum in New York City. A fully refurbished UH-1 is located in the Frontiers of Flight Museum in Dallas, Texas. UH-1M on display at the Texas Military Forces Museum at Camp Mabry, in Austin, Texas. The Coal Land Transportation Museum in Bangor, Maine, has a UH-1D on static display as part of the Vietnam Memorial. The display is visible from Interstate 395. UH-1B gunship on display at the New England Air Museum located at Bradley International Airport, Windsor Locks, Connecticut. UH-1 Hour on display, All Veterans Memorial, Emporia, Kansas. A UH-1 Huey, in medical configuration, is a static display at the U.S. Army Academy of Health Sciences at Joint Base San Antonio. 2 UH-1s on display at the Mississippi Armed Forces Museum, Camp Shelby, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. One aircraft is a medevac UH-1 in a jungle diorama. 2 UH-1s on display in the Minnesota Air National Guard Museum, Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport, Minneapolis, Minnesota. UH-1, BU 60-3614, is on display on the flight deck of the USS Midway Museum aboard the USA Midway in San Diego, California. UH-1 Hour, 65-09889, is on display as Rattler 26 at the Concho Valley Vietnam Veterans Memorial next to Mathis Field in San Angelo, Texas. UH-1 Hour, serial number 64-13731, served with United States Army/NC National Guard and is on display at Carolina's Aviation Museum in Charlotte, North Carolina. UH-1 on static display, SR-99E, Canby, Oregon. 1 UH-1P is on display in the Southeast Asia War Gallery at the National Museum of the United States Air Force located on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. A Huey is on display near Grandview, Iowa near the interchange of U.S. Highway 61/Iowa Highway 92 with Iowa Highway 252/148th Street as part of the All Veterans Memorial. The Army Aviation Heritage Society, located at Tara Field in Hampton, Georgia, owns and operates UH-1 Hour models, as well as AH-1 Cobras. Specifications. General characteristics: crew, 1 Euro 4, capacity, 3,880 pounds including 14 troops, or 6 stretchers, or equivalent cargo, length, 57 ft1 in with rotors, width, 8 ft7 in, height, 14 ft5 in. Empty weight, 5,215 lb, gross weight, 9,040 lb, max takeoff weight, 9,500 lb, power plant, 1 Lycoming T53L11 turboshaft, 1,100 shp, main rotor diameter, 48 ft0 in, performance, maximum speed, 135 mph, cruise speed, 125 mph, range, 315 mi, service ceiling, 19,390 ft, rate of climb, 1,755 a foot per minute, power mass, 0.15 horsepower per pound, armament, variable, but may include a combination of, 2 7.62 mm M60 machine gun, or two 7.62 mm GAU-17 para machine gun, to a 7-round or 19-round 2.75. In rocket pods, to a 7.62 mm Reline Metal MG3, to a .303 Browning Mk2, for information on U.S. armament systems see. Notable appearances in media. The image of American troops disembarking from a Huey has become an iconic image of the Vietnam War, and can be seen in many films, video games and television shows on the subject, as well as more modern settings. The UH-1 is seen in many films about the Vietnam War, including The Green Berets, Platoon, Hamburger Hill, Apocalypse Now, Casualties of War, and Born on the 4th of July. It is prominently featured in We Were Soldiers as the main helicopter used by the air cavalry in the Battle of Ia Drang. Author Robert Mason recounts his career as a UH-1 slick pilot in his memoir, Chicken Hawk. The 2002 journey of Huey 091, displayed in the Smithsonian American History Museum, is outlined in the documentary In the Shadow of the Blade. See also: UH-1 Iroquois variants, Bell Huey a Euro overview of all models, U.S. helicopter armament subsystems, related development, Bell UH-1 Cobra, Bell UH-1 Super Cobra, Bell UH-1N Twin Huey, Bell UH-1Y Venom, Bell 204/205, Bell 212, Bell 214, Bell 412, Bell 533, Panashibavis 2-75, aircraft of comparable role, configuration and era, Sikorsky XH-39, related lists, list of active United States military aircraft, references, footnotes. Citations. Bibliography. External links, official Huey 2-page on bellhelicopter.com, UH-1N USAF fact sheet, UH-1D UH-1 Our Iroquois utility helicopter and UH-1 fact sheet on Army.mil, UH-1 history on Navy Air website, the Bell UH-1 Huey at Greg Gerbels AIR Vectors, Philippine Air Force Huey 2 project, an account of a Medal of Honor rescue flying a Green Hornet, history of the Huey on timothypuittphoto.com, HAL-3C Wolf, Huey 509 Euro the only flying Huey in UK. The short film Staff Film Report 66-2A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-5A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-8A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-10A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-10B is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-12A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-13A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-17A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-18A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-19A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More. The short film Staff Film Report 66-20A is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More.